Now, if you're anything like me, you probably love military history. And to me, one of the most fascinating subjects that I've read probably a dozen books on is the American Civil War. Now, as an American, I recognize the years from 1861 to 1865 as 4 of our darkest years. A house divided, brother fighting brother. 4+ years of terrible, terrible war. Now, as many of you guys know, anywhere from 600,000 to 750,000 soldiers died in that war. But what you may not know is only 1/3 of them died from combat wounds. Seriously, the majority of the deaths, over 400,000, were a result of disease. Diseases like dysentery and severe diarrhea, typhoid fever and pneumonia, the measles and smallpox. Think about that, gents. 2 out of 3 soldiers dying from illness. And this had a direct impact on military outcomes. During the Peninsula Campaign, Union soldiers suffering from disease were weakened and unable to capture Richmond. At the Siege of Vicksburg, dysentery and malaria were so bad, the Confederates surrendered, giving up control of the Mississippi to the Union. And if you look at the Chattanooga Campaign, illness weakened Confederate forces, leading to Union victories at Lookout Mountain and Missionary Ridge. Now, what does all this have to do with how the Marine Corps changed me and my routines? Well, one of the interesting things that came out of this carnage was the U.S. Sanitary Commission. It was created shortly after Bull Run, was ran by civilian volunteers, the goal being to help the military understand it needs to take better care of its soldiers. Now, the U.S. Sanitary Commission was approved in 1861 by President Lincoln. They were actually dissolved just 5 years later, but in that short run, they had a huge impact on the mindset of military leaders. Fast forward 130 years. I'm joining the United States Marine Corps. What is left over? What is one of the first things that shocks me when I join the Marines? Now, besides the DIs yelling in my face, it is the attention to cleanliness and personal hygiene, which blows me away. Now, I'm not saying I was a nasty, dirty guy, but the Marine Corps, their standards of hygiene was at a level I had never seen. Everything was spelled out. Everything was by the numbers. From the way you use soap to where you washed to how often you showered. Right before you would eat, you would wash your hands. After you would use the bathroom, you always washed your hands. Your hair was cut short, and if there was any blood, if anything came up out of your mouth, that was a biohazard and was immediately dealt with and not left for anyone to accidentally step on, slip on, or worst case, contaminate themselves. I know you've heard the saying cleanliness is next to godliness. Saint Mad Dog Mattis of Quantico, one of the reasons he was canonized, he was a clean motherfucker, and so were all the other Marines under him. On top of that, he knew the secrets of the knife hand. But seriously, gents, after the Civil War, military leaders clearly understood that you could lose 2/3 of your fighting force to freaking diarrhea if people didn't wash their hands, if people weren't clean, if you let disease run rampant. So I learned very quickly, personal hygiene, cleanliness is no joke in the United States Marine Corps. Now, really quick, one thing I didn't mention earlier that they actually showed us how to do in the Marine Corps is brush our teeth. I mean, you'd think people knew how to do this, but I have to admit, I didn't realize you needed to go in a circular fashion and that you needed to brush your teeth for at least 2 minutes, which probably explains why my first year in the Marine Corps, I had a couple root canals done because my teeth were that bad. Now, since that time period, I've learned a lot. One of those things being an electric toothbrush is superior to just the regular cheap toothbrush that, yes, you need to manually go in circles with. And again, I kind of learned this the hard way. You see, a few years back, I skipped going to the dentist for my cleaning. Usually I would go every 6 months, but for some reason, it took me 18 months to get in there. And I was starting to get some irritation. There was something wrong. I could feel some pain. When I went to see the dentist, he pointed out, hey, you've got a little bit of gum disease. Basically, the plaque has built up near the gums and it's causing the gums to recede. Per his advice, what I did next is get a good electric toothbrush. Gents, since I've made that switch, it has been night and day when I go in for my cleanings. And the toothbrush I'm using nowadays is today's sponsor, the Laifen Wave. Now, gents, straight up, I love the Laifen Wave. First up, the vibrations get in there and it takes care of any plaque. It cleans the teeth really well, but it's the unique 60-degree oscillations which really set it apart from any electric toothbrush out there. And let's talk about one of my favorite things with the Laifen Wave is the fact that the app allows you to adjust the intensity of the vibrations, of the intensity of the brushing. So if you've got really sensitive teeth, I know some of you guys, you get an electric toothbrush, it only has maybe 1 or 2 settings. You have tons of options. Let's talk about the design. Overall, this is sleek, it's simple, it's really just elegant. I also like how it's small, it travels really well. In fact, it's got this button right here where you can actually put it on airplane mode because I travel with this brush now all the time. And it's got a really fast magnetic charger that looks good, it gets the job done, and it keeps this thing charged for hours of use. And of course, it's waterproof, and those replacement brush heads, not only do they have soft brush heads, but they are inexpensive. Basically, these are very affordable brush heads that you can buy them in larger packs, and that's huge because you don't want to buy an electric toothbrush and get raked over the coals. I love what Laifen's doing here. This is the perfect electric toothbrush. And of course, guys, down in the description of today's video, I've got the best deal on the web for you. So go over to Laifen, check out the Wave, an amazing toothbrush from a great company that I am proud to support. Again, gents, check them out. I've got the link in the description. The best electric toothbrush on the market. Now, the next lesson from the Marine Corps that changed my routines is the power of group PT. So one of the rarest things in the Marine Corps, seriously, it was like a unicorn when I was in, and that is seeing an overweight Marine. I mean, it happens. I heard about one guy over in Oceanside years ago, but for the most part, Marines are in pretty damn good shape. Now, a lot of people think it is discipline. No, I'm here to tell you it's actually peer pressure. Now, a lot of people may hear that and be triggered and think, oh, that's bad. I don't want anyone to be No, when you want something good in your life and you've got a lot of people around you that are pushing you to stay in shape, pushing you to do one more pull-up, pushing you to go a little bit faster. You got a DI or someone that's going to be yelling at you if you don't show up to formation. Guess what? Miraculously, you perform at a higher level. And you can still use this today. I know for me personally, when I need to get back into a fitness routine, I don't rely on myself. I find a workout partner. Recently, my wife has been my accountability partner going on walks with me. And occasionally when I really need help, I go out there and I hire a professional. And let me be clear, I'm not saying you got to spend money, but I am saying that you could spend a little bit of time looking for someone to hold you accountable, because in the Marine Corps, I saw it again and again. When you've got people pushing you, you perform at a higher level. Now, for this next point, let's go to the Navy SEALs, specifically William H. McRaven. His quote is this: "Making my bed was not going to be an opportunity for praise. It was expected of me. It was the first task of the day, and doing it right was important. It demonstrated my discipline. It showed my attention to detail, and at the end of the day, it would be a reminder that I had done something well, something to be proud of, no matter how small the task." Now, I'll be honest, in OCS training, I made my bed once. And for the next 10 weeks, I slept on that made bed so I could gain 5 extra minutes squaring myself away in the morning. But the point here is this: small accomplishments lead to bigger accomplishments. Doing one thing right leads to doing other things right. It's the attention to details that matter, because when you've got a guy that's guarding your back, when you've got someone in business that you're depending on, you want someone that dots their I's, that crosses their T's, that isn't going to flag you with their, armed weapon and accidentally, kill you. Seriously, in life, you realize there are probably people you don't want to be around because they are walking cluster. Now, I get it. Statistically, some people are just unlucky, but most of the walking disasters that I've known over time, they don't pay attention to the details. They don't think cutting those corners is going to matter to anyone. Yeah, until that bridge fails or that transmission they installed ends up falling out. Gentlemen, make your bet and be wary of people that don't make theirs, or at least don't pay attention to the small details. Now, this next habit I picked up in the Marine Corps, I actually teach in my style system, and I still use to this day, and that is laying out my clothes the night before. Now, I know some of you guys are saying, hey, that's what my mom used to do for me. Yeah, your mom was a smart woman. She understood that mornings can be chaotic. Somebody can be sick. You can wake up late. All of a sudden, you have a lot less time than what you thought, or maybe an opportunity pops up. In any case, having extra time and you not having to think and everything laid out there. And on a side note, a hack that we use in the Marines, and I'm sure the Army and the Air Force, the Navy, you guys use this as well, is that we actually had in our locker a uniform that was set aside for inspections only. Spit shine boots that were set aside for inspection only. The reality is when you're out in the field, you're deployed, your stuff is getting all torn up. So you always kept one uniform, one set of gear possibly even, that was pristine, clean, and ready just in case the commanding general decided to pop in and there was going to be an inspection. Now the CG, he's not going to inspect you, but the CO, his butt's going to be all puckered up like this, and he's going to push down, hey, have everyone ready for an inspection. And it's going to go all the way down to the lowliest private. That apparently that CG is going to come look in his locker and everything is going to be ready. Everyone's going to inspect everyone, and we're going to be prepared for something that's just not going to happen. But I share this with you because still to this day, I am prepared for the unexpected. I've got a go-to suit with everything ready, the pocket square in there, the shirt lined up with it. Because if I get invited last minute to a fancy event, or let's say someone passes away and I want to be able to show my respects. The point is, the Marine Corps instilled in me, be prepared. Or actually, maybe that was the Boy Scouts. Anyone else an Eagle Scout out there? Yeah. 93 is when I got my Eagle Scout. Beware of an old man in a profession where men usually die young. So, does anyone recognize this character? Now, Mike may look like a regular guy. In many ways, he is. He can do carpentry work. He's pretty good with auto repairs. He's even a pretty good cook. But if you've watched Breaking Bad, you know this former Marine and ex-Philadelphia cop. Well, he's also pretty good at being a bodyguard, an assassin, a private investigator, and enforcer. And some of the best parts of the show are how people consistently underestimate him. Again and again, you've got these larger, younger guys that come in and think that they can rough him up, that they can push him around. And every single time he outsmarts them, he puts them in their place. Some of them he puts into the ground. I share this with you because I want to talk about respecting protocol, respecting authority, respecting those that are up there. Maybe you haven't seen their feats, and I get it. We're in a world in which you should question everything. But man, there's something to be said about systems that have worked, about people that have earned their way up there. And I would be very careful. I've learned to be very careful about underestimating someone that looks weaker, that looks, hey, I can take that guy. Yeah, I remember a deployment in which we got to all go up against each other. And you had a couple of these younger Marines call out this one gunnery sergeant. He didn't look like much. In many ways, he wasn't well liked. He enforced the rules. He was a hard ass. Let's just say those friendly fighting matches did not end well for those younger Marines. Straight up, this guy was nasty in his moves and where he hit you. Now, building right off of that, let's talk about what Gunnery Sergeant Highway said: to improvise, adapt, overcome. So one of the key tenets of the Marine Corps is understanding the commander's intent. Whenever you receive an order, it's pretty clear what the commander's intent is. If you know the difference between strategy and tactics, tactics are the step-by-step instructions, but those can often get derailed, and they do in the fog of war. But if you understand the commander's intent, what the overall goal is, you can realize, okay, these tactics are outdated. These tactics aren't working, and you throw them out the window, and you find a way to be able to deal with the situation. That wall in front of you, you can't get over it. So you realize, I'm going to either have to blast a hole through it, I'm going to have to dig under it, or you have someone pretty smart that points out we can actually go around it. Now, I'm laying this point out here because one of the lessons I took from the Marine Corps is you don't just have a blind acceptance of authority, especially in the officer corps. You do want to understand why you're doing what you're doing, because the reality is no matter how hard you train, the operation oftentimes goes sideways. So if you understand the commander's intent, what the big goal is, you're going to be able to adjust, you're going to be able to improvise, you are going to be able to overcome the situation. Now, a personal example of improvising, adapting, and overcoming when I was in the Marine Corps, and it's incredibly petty, but I remember being a new lieutenant and having to stand duty. I was also the adjutant, the infantry adjutant battalion. So I had my own office where I had access to the internet. And again, this is, 2001, 2002. Well, in any case, the duty officer was supposed to be in this room that was right below my office. So I would just go down there and put a note and say, hey, I'm up in my office because I'm going to be up all night and I might as well get some work done. Well, I had a company first sergeant point out to me that, hey, according to the rules and regulations, the duty officer needs to be in this room at all times. And to his credit, he was right. He was trying to put a lieutenant in his place. But what I did is realize that, hey, this was signed by the old, like a commanding officer like 20 years before. So I went in and I rewrote the order, had the new commanding officer sign it. But guess what? I made some changes so that a duty officer could be in the office of his choosing if a note was left telling everyone where he was at. Now, I like this story because it highlights that you don't have to follow rules that have always been there, especially ones that have no sense, have no rhyme or reason. They're just written. We've all got this code of conduct. We've all got these rules, many of them that have been handed to us by our parents. We are stuck with these are generational things. And if you think about it, there's no good reason that we're following them. So what I'm encouraging you to do is take a step back. Think about where you're going. Think about what wall you're climbing up. And are you going in the right direction? And even in the Marine Corps, which most people I know view as super strict that you got to follow orders, that's not the case. Now, Jens, personally, the reason I love sharing that story, besides, getting that one up on a sergeant major, who I'm sure at some point did something to me that I didn't even realize, the staff NCOs, those guys run the Marine Corps. But here's the thing, is that even in the most rigid of environments, which I know many of us are in, we feel maybe trapped the way our lives are going with what we've got on, you can still adjust your routine. You can still take a step back and you can rewrite some of the code. You can rewrite the rules to serve you. Because the purpose of a routine, gents, isn't to be a mindless slave. No, it's to free you up to be able to think. The things that you shouldn't be thinking about, those are the ones you put on automation. No, you want to free up time to think about, am I climbing up the right wall? Am I going in the right direction? Am I taking steps towards my goals? Now, gents, if you enjoyed today's video, you are going to love this one. Why are the Marines so stylish? Why are the Marines so damn good looking? I mean, Air Force, you guys are pretty good too. And Army, well, I'm not going to say. Navy, ooh, you guys love each other. But the Marine Corps, we were at a whole other level.